I was going to ask, like, how much did that have to change? Did you have to flex who you were to fit with the other personalities, or did it just so happen to be this perfect harmony of different characters that came together that just fit really well in this one particular boat at that particular moment?
I think it's really interesting because in rowing, I don't think people know this, but we spend the majority of the year competing against each other, trying to make it into the boat and trying to make it into what will be the fastest crew boat that we can make. So
it's just based on times and ability, right?
Yeah,
simple as that.
And you're in a single scull, you're by yourself. So you spend a lot of time competing against these people. And that's where kind of maybe the respect is built as well, that you're trying to work together, but also like do it in a constructive way. And you have to work against each other at points, but it's definitely an on the water thing. And I do think that like we had our dips and stuff, even in crews, like when people get injured, especially in a team boat, like that's really hard because you lose a crucial part of the crew, and then you have to work around that and how you cope. Our boat was really good, I think, coping with, I guess, the stress. We had plenty of like injuries, like illness. Olympic year, I was out of the boat with really bad like illness. POTS actually was chronic, but not chronic, but it's like it was really bad Olympic year. I was out of the boat for like 2 or 3 months, and having to deal with that happening and me not knowing what was going on with my body was not what you needed on Olympic year, but it was far from smooth in our journey. And I think coping with the stress and the pressure is also part of it as the team, because people deal with it individually as your injuries and your illnesses go. But I think rarely do we talk about how teams cope with a person being down or someone missing and how that impacts that. And especially when we were going towards the Olympics that year, that pressure, we were reigning world champions. It was hard. We knew that we could potentially do it, but it was whether all the pieces fell in place. And, when you talk about missing it by 0.1 or being the other side of luck, easily with the injury and illness, if we reacted differently, that would have been that 0.1. It was every part of the year. It was even a reaction to things earlier in the season that were contributing to that.
I mean, because you brought up the illness, actually something that we wanted to touch on, because we, in our 2 episodes ago, we spoke to Louise Bloor, who's a track and field athlete, and she's a professional nutritionist, nutrition coach, and she talked a lot about low energy availability.
Oh yeah,
and particularly the issues of that.
There. Yeah,
yeah, and this was something actually this was new for I think for the both of us, for Yona and
really?
I.
Okay.
Really hearing about this, learning about it, that it's such a huge issue for women in sport in particular. And obviously we read that about your story. And so, wanted to ask about that. Yeah,
I think if there was less so, I was still managing it in Olympic year, but the 2 years before that, in my career, I think I hit 2022 and I had about 10 rib stress fractures in my career by that point. One of which were my rib cracked in a race. And I think that was my reality check, that just something wasn't right. And it wasn't just this badge of honor injury that I had. I was like, why is this not happening, everyone? There's something wrong here. And it sounds so obvious now, but at the time, I just thought the way I was rowing was causing this. And it maybe was a bit of that as well. But then they did tests and looked at like my bone density, and my bone density was like, I had osteopenia. And as an Olympic athlete, having been to Tokyo and going, I train 3 times a day, I lift weights every day, why do I have osteopenia? Like, that's what old people have. Like, I don't know why I've got that. Like, it was completely defeating the purpose in my head of like, what am I doing with my day? I'm completely wasting my time, basically. And then they looked at my energy availability, and it wasn't at the time that I even was like displaying, like I wasn't like a low weight or anything. I was actually a normal weight, but just my energy availability was so low that it caused my bones to deteriorate at the time. And I had to then build back from that and just get my energy intake up and manage that with training, because some people are lucky in individual sports where you can tailor the program and do those things. But in a team sport, if I don't do the training, my teammates aren't going to trust me. I need to prove to them that I'm doing the same thing as them. So I had to almost add more energy availability on top of all the 3 sessions a day we're doing. So it was quite stressful, and I actually did in the end end up reversing my osteopenia and getting back to full health, and touch wood, I haven't had a rib injury in quite a few years now, which is a massive success considering I was having 2 to 3 a year for a good 5 or 6 years. So yeah, that I'm big on energy availability, especially females and males, to be honest. There's a lot of research coming out with males in especially power to weight sports. Rowing's one of them, but I think a lot of them, to be honest, it's a thing.
It's a really reassuring message for people who struggle with low energy availability, because just the fact that you can reverse it and changes that you can make that are very, very tangible, very quote unquote easy to make once you know about it, can make such a big difference.
I just didn't realize the danger, and that's kind of maybe why I speak about it now, is that when I was a teenager and younger, I didn't maybe realize that doing a rowing session fasted in the morning when I was at uni was probably the thing that caused this. I just thought, everyone trains fasted, that's kind of like a thing on Instagram, isn't it? I might look a bit toned. And just like those really innocent thoughts, it wasn't even that I was trying to lose weight or trying to do those things. It's just because our sport, especially in rowing, is just so savage in terms of our miles and our training, that it's starting a session under the calorie deficit and then continuing the day that way was doing this to me over time and causing me this harm that I had no idea. It was something that I was completely oblivious to, and it wasn't something that was, in my case, I know in some cases it is, but triggered by eating disorders and triggered by those things. It was purely just I was eating 4,000, 5,000 calories in a day and I needed 6,000. It was that kind of thing where that's the amount we need. And it was that type of thing. And then when I see now, I'm like, oh gosh, I wish I knew that danger. Even in other sports now, I think younger girls could definitely do with just being aware of that and just understanding what the harm is to your body if you don't look after it.
Well, I mean, honestly, I know this is going to sound a bit silly, but I think probably the worst I've ever felt after exercise was doing 2K on a row machine as quickly as I possibly could.
Oh,
the worst I've ever felt.
I actually agree. I think the same. And I've done a lot of them and they never get better, which says it all. It's awful.
Yeah, so I can go on.
Row machines are terrible. Absolutely terrible.
Yeah,
no, they're awful.
So I can kind of appreciate imagine the amount of energy you are burning and the effort you're putting into that, just based on that feeling.
And
I was so
you're feeling
sick.
You're eating, you feel full, but you have to eat more. And it sounds so simple when you're oh yeah, obviously you train a lot, but the amount I need as a professional rower is so much more than I ever would have anticipated. It's a job to eat the amount we need to eat. And I think I didn't quite take that, especially at uni and stuff when you're running around a bit more and you're not really thinking about those things. If I'd known about that a bit sooner in my career, it would have helped me later down the line. And yes, I've had the success now and everything looks great and everything's rose tinted. But in those earlier years, it would have made my life a lot simpler had I known a bit more about the danger and probably even practiced those things a bit earlier in my career, making sure I always had a snack, making sure I a big breakfast and just starting the day off right,
It's actually something I experienced as well, because I realized at one point, probably in 2019, where I liked my body weight to be a certain weight for competition. That's what I felt was right. But naturally, as I was growing, it was harder to keep that weight. And as I was working harder in the gym, I was just getting heavier. And then I would eat less because I was trying to maintain that weight. But then I realized I wasn't having enough energy to finish the training session. So it made sense at some point. I've realized that I had to eat more, but eating more was actually really difficult. And I found it hard to, sometimes I felt like I was just forcing it down me just to get it down because I knew I needed it. How did you find value in, the foods that you were eating and actually creating that space for more calories to hit the mark above just getting it down you for the sake of getting it down you? Yeah,
I think in a way it did become a bit of I had to just start doing it because there was no way around it. I had to meet the energy intake and especially carbohydrates. The thing was the carbs. I think a lot of the fads now are high protein diets. And I think that's where a lot of people who are doing professional sport, they get caught up even in that a little bit because all the protein bars and recovery, but it's the carbs that are the key. And I think trying to get around it, it was sometimes just sitting down with a Ben and Jerry's at night and just eating the whole thing, to be honest with you. And that's what it was. There really wasn't much method to it. It was just a whole tub of Ben and Jerry's in one go.
I'm
and
sure
that's
some
what I
of these
did
would love to hear that.
I know, but I don't know about you guys.
That's
Maybe
great.
but like in rowing, it is about getting the calories in, and like it is
Mm.
just about eating a whole tub of ice cream. And like, I actually wanted to ask you guys in terms of like diving, like, did you feel, because it sounds weird, but like, was there a body image thing with that? Because obviously you're on the boards, like you have to dive, and that's kind of maybe where you felt it that way. Like ours was probably more power to weight element of like you're pushing your body weight. But I think in every aspect of sport, there definitely is a part of it that you're trying to fuel your body and keep it in a way that's essentially a machine. So I think everyone kind of experiences it in a way.
Yeah.
Sure.
I'll let you answer first on that.
Yeah, in terms of when I was probably not eating enough, it wasn't to do as much with body image, which
Yeah.
your point is totally valid, because diving is an aesthetic sport. We need to look good because that affects the scores that we get, right? For me, it was I was already extremely tall compared to other divers, and because of that, I was heavier already, and I knew I needed to be like nimble in the air, so I didn't want to become too heavy because I might rotate slower. So for me, it was more of a functional reason rather than an aesthetic reason. I don't know if you're similar or different, Freddie.
Yeah, it was functional for me actually, but it all got a bit twisted for me, because I had the kind of the opposite issue of where I was too skinny, and I really struggled to put weight on. And one of the big differences between me and like the best in the world was strength, predominantly, like power. And so that was like a thing that I was obsessed with. And so I went through long periods of like hypertrophy, bulking, forcing food down constantly. I was never hungry. It was awful actually. Like I stopped enjoying food, and I really enjoy food. So I kind of had it the other way. I kind of got rid of some of rather than focus on some of the things that I was really good at and make them as good as possible, I was only focused on being too skinny, have to get bigger. And I actually ended up not even at the best weight anyway. I got heavier and a bit stronger, but then I wasn't at the right balance either. Like I struggled with that in kind of my own way as well.
It's the athlete mindset. I think you're always searching for your weakness and trying to better it.
Yeah.
And it's what we do. And like, I think a lot of it, to be honest, like in my head as well, was functional. It was like, okay, how can I be the best athlete? And I think the reality check was even looking at my bone density and going, I'm no longer the best athlete. Like this is just quite bluntly a waste of time, me lifting weights in the gym when I've got a bone density issue. Like this is just silly at this point. I'd be better taking the session off. And then that's where I was like, right, this needs to change. And I do think that it's just interesting. Like I think people think it is aesthetically, but I don't know, the energy availability and stuff. Like that's why I just feel like strongly about talking about it, because I'm like, it's something that we wouldn't even be aware about it. Aware of it. And like a lot of people are always like to me, are you eating enough? And I'm like, I'm eating so healthy. I am having all my supplements. I'm fueling well. Like I've got everything, bang, 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 check, check, check. But it was just not that complete understanding. Even my like calorie tracker, like, the watches and all, they're not even accurate for how much, like they don't account for like okay, you've done your intensity, but how your body resting afterwards is recovering. There's things like that where like, it might even your watch wasn't actually computing the amount of calories we needed. We needed more than that. And I do think there's that kind of thing that people just go calories in, calories out, off the watch, bang, done. And it's like, your body's way more complicated than that. You just need to get around that and just give it what it needs, and respect that if you're putting it through a lot, it's going to need a lot. And it's not just that simple of some watch calculation.
Yeah. I mean, again, Louise, the nutritionist we spoke with, she was really big on this actually, and she's quite concerned with social media. And with people listening to people who don't have her level of training, for example, and particularly for athletes who might be thinking that carbs are bad, when in actuality, exactly like you're saying, Hannah, you need that as fuel for your session. So it's great you're talking about it.
I also notice on social media, I don't know what it is, but like, I'm sure you've noticed it too, but like a lot of the most viral videos are what I eat in a day. And people have these like interesting like curiosities about what other people's diets are and how to look a certain way, or how to like be a certain way or be a certain person. And I'm like, it's not that simple. It's really Like people are not eating that every single day for the rest of their lives. Like it changes every single day. And I think it's less about actually, I watch them almost in curiosity what someone else eats in a day. And I also watch a few athletes do them. And I'm like, wow, that's just not enough for me. And I hope that younger girls don't watch that and think that one size fits all, because that's where I think there's definitely a bit of an interest on it on social media. And I find that bit in itself interesting, having been the journey I've been through. And I watch it now and I'm like, that just isn't right. Like that wouldn't work for me. But it's for a younger person, that'd be quite impressionable. And I would have probably lapped that up when I was that age and been like, well, that Olympian does that, even though they do a completely different sport. I need to do that.
Yeah, that's the danger, isn't it? Because those types of videos and that type of content tends to do better than the actual truth and the actual valuable content from people like yourself, which is really tough, because it's as great as it is to have, you know, people like yourself and talking about this and our podcast and, you know, where these things can be discussed. They simply just don't get the same hits and the same views because they're less controversial maybe, or less dramatic.
And
I don't know.
it's just the shortness and the grabbing and the aesthetic, kind of like it's attention grabbing. And there's something in it that is grabbing people's focus for a short period of time, for like maybe 20 seconds. And I find it so fascinating that people, like how much traction these videos gain. I'm fascinated by it. I think it's a whole social experiment. I don't know. As an athlete, I watch it and I'm like, wow. To watch this from like an outside perspective and maybe not having the journey I've had, it'd be really interesting. I wonder how much it would impact me.
I mean, social experiment is a great way to put it, actually. And I think you're right. And I think there's a lot of these accidental mass social experiments going on, that, you know, we're starting to see some of the results of. But one thing you said about, like, you know, concerned about maybe your younger self, because, you know, am I right in thinking that you found some of your teenage years more difficult and being like a taller girl, and but then, you know, sport rowing helped that. But then that's true. Like, I guess maybe, do you think being that age and then maybe seeing some of this messaging would have? Been more
I just
dangerous?
even think when I was growing up, like social media was really, really gaining a lot of traction, and I don't think there was as much concern maybe as there is now. Like at least you see a time limit now, like for parents and kids. But I do think when I was growing up, it was kind of like limitless. And I, as a tall 6-foot woman at the age of like 16, I definitely found it hard to fit in because I just wasn't fitting in. I wore a green uniform in school. I got called Green Giant in town. Like it was one of those. And I think, like, that, all jokes aside, I think it was sport that made me like kind of go, oh, I can actually hear my body's actually not that bad at all. Like I can actually go pretty fast in a boat. Don't know if that's not very useful, but you know, and I kind of found a purpose for it, which I think really helped. And it was actually Princeton that really made me appreciate my like height and kind of who I was, because when I went to university where I was surrounded by 50 women that were all the same height as me, and I found they were all going to these really crazy jobs, like being so successful in their own right, so confident. I was like, wow, that's so cool. And I found I almost related to them because I seen them I seen myself in them, and I want to be more like that. And it took me finding my like tribe almost. I was almost talking about like a cult, but it wasn't. It was just like I found people that I could relate to, and that really, really inspired me. But I do think growing up with those videos and me having this like Olympic dream idea, I would have went to the end of the earth to just do it at that point, very impressionable. And I think that's where like social media can have its harm. And like I said, university, it was quite late on, I think in my 20s, I started to appreciate my height. And now I want to be taller. Now I wear high heels. Now I love it. But it's taken a while to get to that point. And I definitely think my teenage years were just tough. They're tough for everyone. You're going through a lot. You're trying to figure out who you are. But it was just me also just being 6 foot and wearing a green uniform, being called Green Giant, you know, it was also that on the side.
Being called Green Giant definitely does not help. And that's so mean.
Oh, like the theme tune. It's amusing now. I just laugh because I see the sweet corn and I'm like, that's me. It's just...
But you actually gave a perfect segue into Princeton, because I definitely don't want to end this podcast without touching on that, because again, such a remarkable achievement goes to an Ivy League university whilst competing at the highest level. what did Princeton teach you about kind of excellence, high performance, high achievement,
Oh my word.
all these kind of things? Share with us some gems if you can.
Being on the East Coast of America, I have never been in a work culture like it. That made me realize just like how hard you could work again. Like on my team when I was rowing, also rowed at Princeton. The girls would be in Starbucks studying before we went to practice at 7 a.m. Like it was that type of culture where it was work. And they would also, like, to be fair, didn't work hard, play hard. It was very fun at the same time. But it was just like every hour of your day was filled with something to do. And Princeton definitely opened up my identity of who I was outside of the boat as well, because it wasn't just a place where you were good at rowing and you were good at school. You also were really encouraged to have a social life, which I really liked about it. Like we had eating clubs, which were amazing. They were 12 houses along a street where in your third and fourth year, you joined them and you'd eat your breakfast, lunch or dinner in one of the houses that you joined. So you're part of this club and you'd meet new people every day. You'd sit and have meals with them. And as an athlete, I really valued that experience because it meant I was sitting having a meal with someone and they didn't care that I was rower. They were just talking to me because I'm Hannah. And there was that outside of Princeton where it just made me way more rounded and it challenged me in the way I think. It probably challenged me more in how I apply myself more than the material. But it was just, it challenged me in every way possible. But in a way, I didn't realize what I was getting myself into at the time. Because again, like I said, I had no idea this opportunity was even available for me. Like I watched Gossip Girl growing up and I realized what an Ivy League was. I didn't know that they were a thing. And only because of rowing and because of sport did I get that opportunity to even look at one and try and apply with my A levels. So yeah, I all around an amazing, amazing experience. And I'm so grateful for it, but definitely hard in terms of the work side of it, but no regrets.
Wow. Yeah. Because you said in the beginning about you being an Olympic finalist and graduating in the same year,
so
in 2021.
It was 2021. It was the COVID year. So there was this weird gap where I was brought home because of COVID. So I was in Northern Ireland and I was kind of like, it was 4 years in America. So I didn't want to spend a delayed year and then potentially impact what would have been Paris. So I was like, I've got to keep going. So I'm going to do my senior year online. So in the mornings, I would get up and I'd train from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. And that would correlate with the time difference in the US. So then I would be starting class just in time for 10 a.m. classes in the US. So then I would go online from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. with my camera on Zoom and complete my whole senior year, where I had to do what was a dissertation, but we call it senior thesis, and go through all of that. And I did that whilst trialing to get on the Olympic team because I decided that year that I would try. And I would just say, why not? COVID's done all this weird stuff. Why not try? And I moved over to England and then trialed for the GB team that year and tried to do both and completed both, but it was crazy. I look back and I'm like, what was I eating?
That's insane because I also graduated from university in the same year that I qualified for my first Olympics in Rio.
Oh, really?
I graduated doing sport and exercise science at Leith Beckett, so it's not quite the same as.
No, but it's time management. It's time management. Do you know what I mean? Like it's the same thing because it's just the stress of it. Because you just don't know which way's up by the end of it. I got out of it and I think I'm upside down.
Listen, the sport and exercise science was not stressful for me. It's nowhere near what you did, honestly. But I do get your point. It is time management. You do have to get certain things done.
Yeah.
We had the dissertation and everything, and it was fine. But it's a crazy thing to do, especially with the way that you had to do it through COVID.
Yeah, and I just remember graduating online on Zoom, and it was just all a bit bizarre. But I kind of thought, if I go to the Olympics at the end of this, maybe this will make it worth it. And I was hell bent that year on trying, and I just didn't know if I would make it or not. But then, thankfully, I was lucky enough to go. And I think that really impacted my Tokyo experience. Was the thing that made Paris, because I was the only returner in the boat for Paris, and the other three girls hadn't been. So then I ended up having to actually make them a handbook. And I said to them 3 weeks out from the games, I was like, here's all my experiences from Tokyo. Don't make my mistakes. Here you go. We're going to do this. And had I not been to Tokyo, I honestly don't know where we would have been in Paris, because I wouldn't have also experienced what I needed to know to then, I think, be successful. So it's all weird, it's domino effect, but I do think it had an impact on that. But yeah, it was crazy to try and attempt that at the time.
Well, experience is invaluable, and when you can share that with other people, it's really awesome. Freddie, I don't know if you have anything else. I have one more question to close up with. It's quite interesting to speak to you, obviously, because you're pushing forward now to the next Olympic Games. You've already achieved the pinnacle,
yes,
which is an Olympic gold, which is fantastic. Obviously, in British rowing, one Olympic gold isn't enough because there's some extremely successful rowers in history. So I can imagine kind of what's pushing you to just continue to maintain that standard. So I feel like I don't need to ask about that. What I want to ask about is, what role do you see yourself in beyond your career when you eventually retire, whenever that is, after LA or even after Brisbane potentially? I don't know what you're thinking, but kind of what role do you see yourself doing? Where do you see yourself placed? Where do you think you will be able to give the most? Because you seem like a very giving person. You seem to be very solid about legacy and giving back and supporting others, but also success at the same time. Where do you see yourself?
It's a good question. I'm answering that myself at the minute, I think. I think I'm more of a person that kind of eliminates rather than like knows where to go. I think I know what I don't want to do rather than what I do. I think it's hard in elite sport at the minute because we don't get a lot of time to ourselves, but I feel like I always gravitate towards like entrepreneurship and running your own business and those types of things. Cause I do think it's the same work ethic of you get in what you get out, what you put in. And I could see myself doing that one someday because I just feel like there's a real reward in that. That being said, at the same time, I just see myself having a challenge wherever that will be. On another like side note to that, I also do see myself giving back in terms of volunteering. I feel very strongly about volunteering in sport, and it's not necessarily about the money and the finance and being your job. But I feel like because I came from a coach that volunteered his time up, I feel very strongly about how much that can impact other people's lives. And I do think I will do that in my life as a little side hobby. But in terms of career, I could be anywhere, but I do see myself with the challenge in front of me and working with people and teams and just learning, like anything to get the best out of other people. I see myself doing that. That's what I think my talent is helping other people get the most from themselves in a way. I'm trying to get the most from myself as well. You know what I mean?
I suppose, but that's where real meaning often comes, isn't it?
I agree. And yeah, I think meaning it's hard because I don't see myself doing a job like 9 to 5. I don't know where I'll be or what I'll be doing, but I think there'll be more to it. I think that's everyone though, isn't it? And you're just trying to...
That's definitely not us either. We are definitely not on the whole 9 to 5 kind of vibe.
I know it's hard. And it's hard because I think as athletes, we love routine as well. And that's where I'll need my balance. So I'm just trying to find the middle ground. And I don't know where that is right now. But like I said, I love being around people. I definitely see myself with people. I don't think I'll be a work from home girly. Won't be doing that. But I feed off energy and I feed off teams and I feed off challenges and excitement. So I'm excited for the future. I'm excited for life post rowing for myself as well as my career in it, because I think there has to be some excitement outside of the sport as well.
I mean, there's so many things that I also want to just like keep asking about, but yeah, I mean, we do have to wrap this up at some point for this main episode.
Yeah,
but I do
would
want to
love
say,
to continue chatting as well, honestly.
Yeah, I'm enjoying this. I'm asking you guys questions,
which is great. You know, I mean, and we still got a little bit left in the bonus section.
Yeah.
So you know, so feel free to ask away in that as well. You know.
Yeah.
But I do just want to say, in reflection to what you just said about you see yourself, or you want to do something where you can try and get the best out of people, and that's what you feel like you can excel at. And just through some of the things you told us today, the story about that gold medal race, where and you're steering the boat with your feet and like rowing for your life, and at the same time processing all that information of like, well, I know we're behind and this is a problem, and but I believe we're okay, and but I have to deliver this message in the right way because otherwise we're not going to get this. I mean, that is an insane example of that.
Yeah.
And also just the fact that you took it upon yourself to give your other 3 Olympic newbie teammates a sort of a handbook going into like, you know, these are the mistakes I made. Like you just took that upon yourself, right?
Yeah. I remember the men's head coach asking for it, and I was like, no. Like, this is my personal handbook. Like he was like, he heard about it, and he was like, oh, that sounds like a good idea. Can I just share that with the whole squad? And like, obviously I'm a team player, like I want everyone to have it, but it was quite personal of like the do's and don'ts of Olympics. And I'm sure you guys can relate about the Olympic Village, even being in the Team GB tower and like the medal tally, and just walking past that in reception every day, and just like those types of pressures you experience in sport, I think they are ramped up in an Olympics. And I don't know, I just think there was so many things like that. I wanted them to know about it when they came in, when we all went to the village together, and that overwhelming experience I experienced in Tokyo, I could at least try and help and say, don't do what I did. Don't do that. Don't walk to the village in 40-degree heat every day. That's not a good one. Like, it sounds simple, but you will do it.
Yeah, no. So I just, yeah, a lot of what you said, I can really, I can understand and feel already. So
thanks.
Yeah, and it's been an absolute joy speaking with you.
Well, thanks, guys. I've enjoyed this. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, me too. That is our pleasure.
It's literally the whole reason why we started the podcast.
Yeah.
Listen.
Yeah. No, but really, I mean, I'm sure, well, from us, also from the listeners, everyone's going to be really excited to follow your career and then what you go on to do afterwards, because it's an amazing story.
Thanks,
and
guys.
amazing personality to go with it. So,
oh, thank you very much. It's very kind. I never know, because I'm literally like, it could be just really boring for other people. You never know. Like sometimes, you know, you got to be self-aware.
Yeah, you're doing all right.
Okay, good.
Right. Winning Olympic gold by 0.15 seconds is not going to be boring to anyone.
Oh, so. I know. I know. That was, like I said, I look back and I'm like, I thought it was more, but anyway, it's fine.
Crazy.
It's fine.
All right. Well, that is where we will wrap this main episode. So if you're listening on Patreon, don't go anywhere. Hannah is sticking around for one more dive. And if you're not there yet, you'll find a link in the show notes. We'll thank Hannah and we'll catch you in the next one.